and the posts hast thou set up thy remembrance, for thou hast discovered thyself to another than me, and art gone up. Thou hast enlarged thy bed, and made thee a covenant with them. Thou lovest their bed where thou sawest it.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing our study today in the book of Amos, chapter 4. Hear this word, ye kine of Bashan, that are in the mountain of Samaria, which oppress the poor, which crush the needy, which say to their masters, Bring and let us drink. The Lord God hath sworn by his holiness, that lo, the days shall come upon you, that he will take you away with hooks, and your posterity with fish hooks. And ye shall go out at the breaches, every cow that is... And ye shall go out at the breaches, every cow at that which is before her, and ye shall cast them into the palace, saith the Lord. Come to Bethel and transgress. At Gilgal multiply transgression, and bring your sacrifices every morning, and your tithes after 3 years, and offer a sacrifice of thanksgiving with leaven, and proclaim and publish the free offerings, for this liketh you, O ye children of Israel, saith the Lord. And I also have given you cleanness of teeth in all your cities, and want of bread in all your places, yet ye have not returned unto me, saith the Lord. And also I have withholden the rain from you, when there were yet 3 months to the harvest, and I caused it to rain upon one city, and caused it not to rain upon another city. One piece was rained upon, and the piece whereupon it rained not withered. So 2 or 3 cities wandered unto one city to drink water, but they were not satisfied. Yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord. I have smitten you with blasting and mildew. When your gardens and your vineyards and your fig trees and your olive trees increased, the palmer worm devoured them. Yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord. I've sent among you the pestilence after the manner of Egypt. Your young men have I slain with the sword, and have taken away your horses, and have made the stink of your camps to come up into your nostrils. Yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord. I have overthrown some of you, as God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, and ye were as a firebrand plucked out of the burning, yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord. Therefore thus will I do unto thee, O Israel. And because I will do this unto thee, prepare to meet thy God, O Israel. For lo, he that formeth the mountains, and createth the wind, and declareth unto man what is his thought, that maketh the morning darkness. Let's do it all over again. For lo, he that formeth the mountains, and createth the wind, and declareth unto man what is his thought, and that maketh the morning darkness, and treadeth upon the high places of the earth. The Lord, the God of hosts, is his name. I'm going to read the next chapter too, that's not a lot of verses. Though we may not get very far beyond chapter 4 today, but let's read it. Hear ye this word which I take up against you, even a lamentation, O house of Israel. The virgin of Israel is fallen. She shall no more rise. She is forsaken upon her land. There is none to raise her up. For thus saith the Lord God, the city that went out by 1,000 shall leave 100, and that which went forth by 100 shall leave 10 to the house of Israel. For thus saith the Lord unto the house of Israel, Seek ye me, and ye shall live. But seek not Bethel, nor enter into Gilgal, and pass not to Beersheba, for Gilgal shall surely go into captivity, and Bethel shall come to naught. Seek the Lord, and ye shall live, lest he break out like fire in the house of Joseph, and devour it, and there be none to quench it in Bethel. Ye who turn judgment to wormwood, and leave off righteousness in the earth, seek him that maketh the 7 stars in Orion, and turneth the shadow of death into the morning, and maketh the day dark with night, that calleth for the waters of the sea, and poureth them out upon the face of the earth. The Lord is his name. That strengtheneth the spoiled against the strong, so that the spoiled shall come against the fortress. They hate him that rebuketh in the gate, and they abhor him that speaketh uprightly. For as much, therefore, as your treading is upon the poor, and ye take from him burdens of wheat, ye have built houses of hewn stone, but ye shall not dwell in them. Ye have planted pleasant vineyards, but ye shall not drink wine of them. For I know your manifold transgressions, and your mighty sins. They afflict the just, and they take a bribe, and they turn aside the poor and the gate from the right. Therefore the prudent shall keep silence in that time, for it is an evil time. Seek good, and not evil, that ye may live. And so the Lord, the God of hosts, shall be with you, as ye have spoken. Hate the evil, and love the good, and establish judgment in the gate. It may be that the Lord God of hosts will be gracious unto the remnant of Joseph. Therefore the Lord, the God of hosts, the Lord saith thus, Wailing shall be in all streets, and they shall say in all the highways, Alas, alas! And they shall call the husbandmen to mourning, and such as are skillful to lamentation to wailing. And in all vineyards shall be wailing, for I will pass through thee, saith the Lord. Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord! To what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light, as if a man did flee from a lion, and a bear met him, or went into the house, and leaned his hand on the wall, and a serpent bit him. Shall not the day of the Lord be darkness, and not light, even very dark, and no brightness in it? I despise your feast days. I will not smell your solemn assemblies. Though you offer me burnt offerings and your meat offerings, I will not accept them. Neither will I regard the peace offerings of your fat beasts. Take thou away from me the noise of thy songs, for I will not hear the melody of thy viols. But let judgment run down as waters, and righteousness as a mighty stream. Have ye offered unto me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness 40 years, O house of Israel? But ye have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch, and Chiun your images, the star of your God, which ye made to yourselves. Therefore will I cause you to go into captivity beyond Damascus, saith the Lord, whose name is the God of hosts. Yeah. See, God doesn't really care about your offerings and burnt offerings and money and all that stuff. People think they can give their way to prosperity with God, and it doesn't work that way. Now, God does bless it. You say, well, but Paul, you deny that, but the scriptures say if you do this, and yeah, if you're doing God's will, and you have all your needs provided for, and what are you going to ask beyond that? What am I going to? And if I have such as what is beyond my needs, that is a burden. To be, not like, oh, it's a burden, but it's something I have to think about. It is not something just to be taken lightly. People have to, because we're going to be answering for what we've done in our life and with our life. And if a substantial portion of that is piling up money, then the question is going to be, well, what did you do with the money? That's why I don't ask for money and stuff like that, because I'm like, if I was in jail or something, I could see something where it's like, I need people to support me. Like Paul, he made tents, he did whatever he did for a living. And worked with his own hands, but then he was in prison eventually, and he needed to be a beneficiary of other people's generosity. Okay, there's a place for that. And when you do that, you're blessed. But, you got to bestow it where it's truly needed. A lot of these preachers, they get up and do less than what I do as far as helping people understand God's word, and then they demand all kinds of money. It's just ridiculous because we're holding forth the gospel. You're just on TV talking about Jesus to a bunch of people that already believe in Jesus. We got beautiful music and songs, and it's just a big show. It's just a big show. And you know what God thinks of that big show? It makes him sick. It's just like those feast days and stuff. All that religiosity, especially and particularly when it's just a cloak for unrighteousness. And that's my assertion, that there's greed, there's all kinds of sin involved in this operation, and it's being wrapped in the gospel like it's some sort of holy thing. Give me a break. It's funny that people actually fall for that. That shows you how bad the local churches have done, teaching people to be able to discern what a godly preaching sounds like. How awful is church that you can't sniff out a Kenneth Copeland or something like that? I mean, I know it's like the problem is 90% of what they say is okay, but it's like, but what are they doing? Yep. Anyways, so here we go. You kind of Bashan, he calls them cows, like you fatted cows, and there's I think there's a subtext there, meaning well not subtext, yeah, a little bit, the idea of animals. When I think about the kind of Bashan, it makes me think of the Song of Moses. Rams, the son of Bashan. I was always like, what's this Bashan? Well, it's the place where you raise cattle in the region. It was good grazing land. So that's what that Bashan is about, okay? Kind of Bashan. It's cows. I guess that's the word, for cows. It is, because I was saying if a cow is a female animal, and oftentimes it's like, well, and then the bull's the male, but what do you call both of them? What are they both? Cattle? Cattle's all right. But that also refers to wider number of creatures, I thought. But anyway, but how do we get cow, cattle? It's one of those irregular nouns, I guess. Cow, cattle, and bull. Whereas we can call a deer, and then we have a doe, and we have a buck. I don't know. Well, like I said, I'm not quite clear if cattle is the right word. But maybe it used to be kine. I don't know. Kine of Bashan, that are in the mountain of Samaria. In the Song of Moses, it's just talking about the good things of the land that God would give them. And it's, when you listen to the Song of Moses or you read it, it's kind of remarkable when you consider, I see why people think the law of Moses was written in Babylon, because especially Deuteronomy, it prophesies of that they will soon utterly perish from off the land. But honestly, it sounds much like the rhetoric Moses otherwise uses as far as, I don't know. I definitely believe the books of Moses are the books of Moses. Because just like with this, Amos has a referent. He refers to something. He refers to this law, to this tradition, to this knowledge that people would have had common knowledge of. And like I said, you don't get all of that embedded into a society just by word of mouth, just by, there has to be some historical memory. And that's why he could call them to that. That's why Jeroboam, when he sets up the golden calf in Bethel and in Dan, I believe he says, these are your gods which brought you out of the land of Egypt. Why would he say that if that was just like something they made up later on in Babylon? No, you say, well, they added that back. It's too rich of a story. It requires way too many assumptions and all this kind of like scheming and all for what? It's like It's not like something like where you have one person just write a book. The thing was clearly cobbled together over centuries. Yeah, the Bible obviously is like Amos don't sound like some of the other prophets. He's got his own voice. It's the voice of the Lord, but it's coming through the mouth of the prophet Amos. I really am fond of this prophet as far as the prophet, the way he talks. I feel that. And when you get fat in the midst of human suffering, God is not going to be pleased with you. People who get fat while others suffer or at the expense of others, oppressing the poor, crushing the needy, which say to their masters, bring and let us drink. What it means by say to their masters. Let's look at that. What does this refer to? Which say to their masters. Adon, which is, I'm sorry, I haven't brought you along for the fun. For those of you actually watching, I got to remember to try to be very descriptive so that if you're listening along, you know that I'm pulling up the Bible Hub page with this passage on it. And let's say there's the word masters. When I hover over it, I get Adon, which is, you may recognize as akin to the word Adonai, which it is. It is a shortened form of that. Bo, let us drink. Bring and drink. Okay. Say to their lords. I think it's referring to their. This is sort of a feminized thing. It's referring to the women, I believe, because that would be who their lords are, their husbands and their lords, or their other, to the men over them. And you and your posterity, that would be particularly, your children. Though it doesn't say your children, it says here the after part. But, that's what posterity means. It means what comes after. The after part or the end. How many times is it used here? Genesis? Oh, in the last days there, in the prophecy of Jacob in Genesis 49. And let my end be like of the righteous, let my last end be like his. It's used a lot. Your end, your end, your end. The destroyed, the posterity of the wicked, the end of the wicked. It's very interesting that he will destroy their end is an interesting thing. Because there's an end to things, but we also have this idea of eternity to come. And as we were reading this, I don't know if you felt it like I did, but I felt Amos, he directly refers, I think, or implies, once again, and in the Old Testament, it's just like this. You have to find these references by sniffing them out. He's referring to the resurrection, clearly, because, I think so, and we can go on the positive and negative of that, but it really felt like that, he makes it clear when he talks about, turn to me and you will live. And will not, it may be that he will have mercy when we come to that part again. But I felt it as we were reading it, and I wanted to, when he goes like, prepare to meet your God. For what, meaning as, judgment's coming. And make it the morning darkness. And all that, but also turneth darkness into morning, which he says later on, and he speaks that, I believe, to those for whom he has mercy. If he would be great, he can bring us back, ultimately. Anyways, we'll make greater note of that as we go through the passage. I gotta do the line by line thing. I should have made a mental note of exactly where we were. All right, so. Let's go back. Which say to their masters, let's see what the NIV thought about that. How did they decide to translate it? We're going to go to the Devil's Translation now. Here we are. Hear this word, you cows of Bashan on Mount Samaria. Well, let's specify cows. You women who oppress the poor and crush the needy. They make it specific, it's women. Now, where did that word in the King James go right there? Yeah, it doesn't say it's which oppress the poor, and they're supplying that, you women. So it's as they agree with what I was saying, that this is directed at the ladies, which say to your husbands, because referring to him as your Lord or your master. The word Mister, in fact, is a form of master, just as Mrs. is a form of mistress. And there's nothing wrong with calling. I mean, it's no strange thing. My wife is my mistress, and I am her Lord. In that sense, because I don't own myself entirely, I belong to her. So I'm whatever. I'm not trying to say anything controversial, is what I was trying to fumble around with there. I'm not. I don't consider that like women. It's like, I mean, I'm pro patriarchy. I'm a patriarch. I'm not. I think I think people ought to be free, but on the other hand, I don't know. They need to learn how to live, or they're not going to live long. I mean, that's what the one of the messages. Learn to live, or you won't live long. And not only that, when things get bad enough, God will judge the earth. He will come and judge the earth. The day of the Lord is coming. And it's going to be way darker before it gets light again. I'll tell you that right again. Yeah, that's for sure. It's not. Now for us and for Amos is the one yelling this at people, or the way I do, or at least that way I would have it interpreted, right? He's the one shouting this at the priests and the prophets of Baal and Chiun and Chemosh and all those false gods, Moloch. He mentioned Moloch. Everyone loves to hear about Moloch. Not that everyone loves to hear about it, but it's quite a gruesome thing. And they even a lot of this was based on archaeological discoveries of like gruesome things they used to do to children with the god Moloch. Child sacrifice. People don't, to this day, they speak of it openly. Especially when they talk about abortion, they'll say, how much killing this baby is done for my life. I mean, I'd never been able to be the success I am if I hadn't killed my children. Yeah, they do take up a lot of your attention. But, if you want to square things with the God that created life, which you need to do, I say people don't think God is real. Oh, good for you. You're so clever and such a fool. I'm sorry to say, because you got to understand, we will answer. We don't think we will, but we will. You don't get to exercise this level of consciousness without having to answer for it, I guess. And in my beliefs, ultimately the answer is you will die, the second death, and your lights will go out forever. And and a lot of people can square themselves to that. It's like, fine, I don't want to live forever, right? They even will say, they talk about how life forever is boring and it never works and heaven fails and all this stuff. Nonsense, because they have a failure of imagination, really. Because I can imagine, and one of the things I notice is like, right, it says you have built houses of stone, but you will not live in them. That's what I was talking about. They will build houses and inhabit them. They will plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them. There's productive things to be done, and there's no end of them. That's one of the things I learned in life, that there's no end of all the labor that one can take under the sun. And it can be vain or not. I mean, there's a vanity in the labor you take to just feed yourself. But once you've fed yourself, if you have time and talent, there's all kinds of ways you can be productive. If you have, zest and spirit for life, I would love to be relieved of that burden of not having to take care of myself, but but I don't. Like I said, for me, it leaves such a bad taste in my mouth. And the things I want to pursue are not all. I don't know how much more Bible studying I could offer. To me, it's just like, I don't know. The women who oppress the poor and crush the needy, which say, oh, let's drink, let's have some drink, woe to you women that are at ease. Another place it says. Yeah, they love. There is a certain sort of thing about women that's really disgusting. And it's when women think that their beauty entitles them to so that the world owes them a living, basically. And that the man owes her a living. Her only job is to just be beautiful. If that's how you approach life, let me tell you, you're going to stand before the Lord naked, bald, and covered with sores, because that's about how pretty you look right now, in the spirit. That's not a woman's job. The ornament of her beauty ought to be a quiet spirit. There's one thing, humble. But as we've read in Proverbs, a good woman is productive and does things. She can be beautiful too. I mean, that's not something that she can't do, but that's not like just your job. And that's not just like, ooh, now the world, the world should just, I know women who had trouble in romance and never was able to get married they get married, but then they get divorced, and they get married again, and they get divorced. And no one wants to stay with them. And I think from the beginning, it's part of their attitude has been, you're going to attract a certain kind of guy when you're like, look how great I am. I'm looking for the highest bidder. If that's, if that's your attitude towards love and life and marriage, and, because this does sort of make me think of just a bunch of trophy wine moms sitting around sipping their Chardonnay, right? But while the stock portfolios of their husbands go up, and all their money's all invested in all, in war stocks and in pharmaceuticals and in all the goodies that are making all the money. But at whose expense? Let's say all the money they printed to make those shots happen and to pay to that pharmaceutical. A lot of them they had to get rid of. Nobody even wanted them, especially when they got around to the booster rounds. Nobody wants the boosters. It's funny they even talk about hesitancy. Nobody takes it. Most of the people who talk about people not taking it aren't taking it. And they don't want to say why, because you get in trouble for saying why. At least if you like to talk, you get in trouble because you want to talk. I like to talk, so I'm not going to say why, because I don't want them to shut me up. But we know what I mean. But I don't say, but if you don't say it, I guess, well, pretty soon in the air, I'll be like, he is alluding to something we know is not good. We wouldn't want him to allude to that. Oh, it's not worth getting another Bible study taken down. All right. Because like that issue, whatever, that's so dead, it's a doornail and a half, all right? It's a doornail and a half. It is dead. I mean, as much as I'd like to go on raving about it, and I could and do, and I got music out there and stuff, the truth is we kind of, on a certain level, we won. We lost because the first round, so many people took it, and there's going to be repercussions from that. But as far as people going on and just shooting up as many times as they would like them to, people are not doing that. So I take some comfort in that, to know that people kind of wised up. And when they were told lies, they took note about the lying. The promises they said that getting this treatment would deliver, those promises were lies. And that's known to be the truth now, right? There are many things they said that it would do that it doesn't do. And other things it does that it shouldn't. But they say it quite clearly. If you look at the website, they tell you all the ways it can kill you. Yes, it can. They certainly say it's rare. I'll note that. It's rare. How rare? Well, who knows? Who cares, right? I mean, what's a rare death between friends? And all kinds of rich people out east. It's like Richmond, north of Richmond, where that guy said all that song, and it's like, The poor in our country, though, are not really what I see as so oppressed. And the reason we have all these people at our doorstep is because of this blowback from all the stuff where we're always wrecking the economies of other countries, or whatever, or the ideas that our country and our professors are promoting. Going around the world just destroying everything. Yeah, the world is going into. I look at it as like a kind of a spiral. It's not the kind of direction you want to think of the world is going, do you? But that's what it feels like. But you know what? Like I said, you have to take comfort. It's kind of exciting too, because if the end time, even if the end times don't roll around, we're going to live in interesting times. And when I was young, I kind of wanted to live in the end times, even though now I realize that was crazy. Even though I believe there will be a generation that must live through those times, because there must be prophets to prophesy. And the Lord doesn't work where he just suddenly, occasionally he'll take somebody like the Apostle Paul. But the reason it's notable is for the exception. It's like, like I said, I fully deny the rapture. There will be no rapture. There's only a resurrection. A first and the first one comes after the last trump, which is at the moment of Christ's return. And we will be gathered together to meet the Lord in the air at that time. And that's all that's about. That's all about one event. Yeah, pretty much. But until that, I don't want to. I hate wasting time arguing about rapture, because like I said, I just simply don't believe in it. And I like to focus on, okay, we're going to be here. So what does that mean? And we have a roadmap. It's Revelation. It says what's going to go down. So it's not hard to anticipate. That's why I say I want to be healthy. I want to be able to walk around. I'm probably going to need to. If the world goes that far, if the events start transpiring like you see in Revelation, like I mentioned trumpets, I didn't talk about the actual trumpets at all, but I've talked about them many times. A significant meteor strike is what I think one of them is, and that should be set off alarm bells going like crazy. You see a something, if anyone starts talking about it as a mountain and fire into the sea, and it lands in the sea, if it's legitimately, I don't mean a pebble, that should send off alarm bells. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the end. It's when you have all the things in the trumpets kind of line up, then you'll know you're headed right down the barrel of the gun. And and that's that's a great calling to be exposed to, in spite of of course the great personal risk that it involves for any of us. But Jesus laid his life down for us. Are we going to deny him at the ultimate moment because we were I thought it was going to be raptured away. I never, the Christian lady praying in the church in Gaza, I don't know if she was praying to be raptured away, but the bullet hit her. The bullet hit her. So there's lots of Christians that suffer and die right now. Who do you think was suffering when ISIS? There's a whole community of Assyrian Christians right there in the middle of all at Syria, right in Syria and Iraq. I don't know if we got many Assyrians in Iran, but it's all in that area up there. It's an entire Christian people. They've been exposed to genocide before. But people start thinking with this tunnel vision, like, Arabs, Muslims, they're all crazy religious fanatics. So I said, if that's how they see me, I'm a crazy religious fanatic. It's like, hey, I'm not gonna, fully deny it. I'm not gonna protest much about that because I'm the crazy part, perhaps, religious fanatic, maybe. I don't shy away from words like fanatic, but I don't engage in fanatical behaviors that one would consider odious. I just am fanatical in my dedication in my faith. I mean, it's like, if I understand the word fanatic properly. But, if you're going to be a fan, I never like to say I'm a fan of anybody. Like, that's what, my dad, it's funny, he had special words he didn't like. He didn't like worry. He didn't like using the word worry. No one should ever, and he didn't like luck. And I get it. And this one does that for me too. Just one I like to shy away from. But anyways, let's go on. All right. So they love to drink and just forget about all the consequences. It's like I said, I'm not directly responsible for what America does in every place, but I can't just turn a blind eye to it either, because on some level, I can be part of the solution. I can convince other people, and then if we all vote in a different direction, and certainly, as people wise up, and that's why they want to curtail free speech, because they don't want people to wise up. They don't want to hear, and that's the thing, is like, as evil totalitarianism starts creeping over America, what is going to rise up against it but fanatical preachers, who are going to be the first ones to speak up? Why was the church I had to go to during the pandemic, when I wanted to go to a church that still operated illegally, because I wanted to go to church illegally. Not that it was illegal, actually, because it was never a law. So it's not illegal, okay? But anyways, against orders. I wanted to defy it. Like the Christians of old, when they met in the tombs, down underneath the city. Because they would not submit. There is a certain amount. I was working on a new song. What was it called? Christian Rebellion. Sometimes you have to rebel. And so, of course, in these other parts of the world where they are being oppressed by us, basically not allowing them to have the governments they want, eventually they turn to religion. And then we get these fanatic right-wing religious Muslim governments start rising up. Yeah, because it's a response to the corrupt Western godless ones we keep trying to install. So, of course, they turn to their religion. And it's not Christianity. So, they don't think turn the other cheek. They think, give me a rifle. And I understand that. I got neighbors that feel just like that. Okay? They don't feel like, Paul, let's go and talk. Let's go and tell them what they're doing wrong. They think, no, Paul, let's put the barrel up. Let's lift our guns up high. And, that's what they do over there. A lot of them. Not all of them. Some of them respond very differently. A lot of them that responded by becoming paramedics are getting shot and entrapped to be shot when they're coordinating. They'll get whatever. I don't know if you heard the story of, there was like a little 6-year-old girl trapped in a car with her dead family. And they were trying to get paramedics to get her out, because the Israelis had blown them up. But she was still alive in the car with the dead people as night falls. And they sent an ambulance. They coordinated, the Red Crescent coordinated with the thing. But when the ambulance drivers got there, they sniped them. They sniped the paramedics. Killed them. And what happened to the girl? Well, she died there. I don't know what from what. Exposure, maybe another bomb hit. Who knows? I don't know the end of the story. We'll have to wait for, Paul Harvey's gone, so we're not going to hear the rest of the story. I don't know. Maybe we will. Maybe I'll look it up. Yeah, I'm not directly responsible for that, but I need to know about that because we are funding their war. American bombs are falling on children, and that's something I don't think I want the tax dollars we spend to go into. I could think of a lot of more worthy ways to waste our money. I mean, how can you say, why even complain about welfare or, Social Security? We can't afford it. Are you kidding me? We seem to be afford infinite money. If it comes to war, we have no limit on how much money we will. When it comes to paying pharmaceutical companies to give us injections, there's no limit on the amount of money, apparently. When it comes to certain things, we got lots of cash. No problem. We can't. People, when you try to get health insurance for yourself, what is it, like $1,000 a month? So much for affordable. Healthcare was more affordable before they got involved in it. But anyways, people still can't get their medical things taken care of. Even in this country. Like I said, in this country, I don't see our poor as that oppressed. I know we think we're oppressed here, but we got to open our eyes maybe and look around and see, like I said, on a worldwide scale, where do we stand really? My American poverty. I do not, that's why you don't hear me complain about it. I mean, like I said, whatever. And so no complaints. Maybe I have complained from time to time. I don't know. But I won't lodge a formal complaint. It's like a lot of things. Sometimes you feel a certain way. Sometimes you feel like God has forsaken you. Like Jesus said it when he quoted Psalm 22. And sometimes you feel that way, but it's not your conviction. I mean, my conviction is never that God has forsaken me. Sometimes I feel God forsaken. Sometimes I feel like, where is God? But I know that he's there. And I know he hasn't turned his back on me because I've never turned my back on him. I mean, in very many small ways I have, I suppose. If we look at our sins as a form of turning our back on the Lord, well, then we have, I mean, I certainly will not try to justify myself. But as far as a Christian goes, as far as a Christian standard where we put our faith in him, we trust in him. Like I said, I haven't changed my mind about that. I haven't stopped believing. Haven't stopped seeking. And so I know from every promise that the word has that I have no risk. So long, there is no risk. Why? There's no risk because he is my Savior. It denies the idea of risk. Risk. What am I risking? What can I possibly lose that I really have? This house? I don't really have this house. I'd like to think I have it. I want to have it. I'd like to pay it off and stuff, but it's also a big pain in the neck, But someday I'll fix it, and someday it'll be someone else's, and that's okay, I don't, because it's not truly I seek another place. There's another place I seek. There's another, another country. That's ultimately the truth. I was thinking it was funny. I was like, maybe all the Christians should start registering as agents of a foreign government. But that wouldn't count. I don't think you can count. God's government is not a foreign government. It's a domestic government. It's a domestic government that's always governed Christians everywhere for all time, those who are obedient to it. There's always fakers and talkers and people who are, not sincere. But you can't do anything about that. I mean, you can't prevent it from happening. It's going to happen. I mean, you can react to it. But that's it. We can react. We could try to make people better. That's what the whole point of edification is. And sanctification. Because as Christians, we believe we ought to be better. Because we know we're going to a better place where we're going to dwell in a kingdom that's all righteous. So I don't want to be like, I don't know how to live that. I don't want to be like, oh, what's that like? What's that like? What's I don't know a sober day in my life. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know a contented thought in my entire life. How am I going to fit in heaven? Well, that's the point. If he gives us time to live, I think it's a good idea to sort of start fitting in, to work on that. Because, it's serious. We can't just act like we can do whatever we want. Paul made that very clear. It is not, let us sin that grace may abound. I'm sorry. And all that implies, because it implies that you don't do that. That's unacceptable. Meaning, like, you don't even have to have the doctrine. If you're living that way, like with an attitude of I can sin some more and grace will abound. You don't think that in your head, but you're living it out because you don't take stock of any of your sins that you do. And it's every bit as bad in my mind as someone who is self-righteous and thinks they're righteous and likes to declare themselves sinless, but they're actually just really awful people who have not done any of this, but they're just claiming it. I have never sinned since I believe. I've run into them, and they're not nice, and they're not. I mean, it's not that niceness has to be part of it, but they're so of such a ill spirit that there's no way they're going to convince me that they're not sinning right now. You know what I mean? I think you're lying to me. You're sinning immediately, and you're lying to yourself. I don't think I look anything like perfect. I mean, even if I'm not committing adultery, even if I'm not looking at pornography, not lusting after other women, not drinking alcohol, you can take all that stuff out of your life. You're still going to have things you need to work on. I know, because I've lifted things and then found there's things under the rock. And you lift up the next layer and you find out, well, hey, there's stuff down there. Because it goes down to the depths of the heart, and your heart is deceitful. Your heart wants you to be good and wants you to think of yourself as good. It feels good. I got a lot of gray hairs recently, and I think it's because, I've often felt a very, piercing self-examination and taking on myself a lot of thought of responsibility that probably I don't need to lay on myself. But that's choice. But I say it's a choice, but I never feel like I have a choice. Because when the needy are getting crushed and the poor are being oppressed, and there's people who have power and money and prestige, but they don't care a whit about it, but only perpetuate it, it makes me really angry. Really, I feel full of the fury of the Lord all the time lately. And, and it just really gets to me. Because the Lord cares about what we do with our lives and what we do to other people. Even if they're not his people, they're people. They have a judgment too. And especially when we're talking about children, I mean, they haven't had much time to do anything terrible yet. So, it's like, I said, I don't promise heaven to anybody. That's for the Lord Jesus to decide. But everyone must face Christ. Everyone will, and that's a good thing, that he is the judge. He showed himself to be a man of mercy. Are you saying he's going to let people off? I'm not saying anything. I'm saying he's God. He can do as he pleases. I noticed that loophole. And it's implied in a lot of things. And, the fact of that second white throne judgment, we know nobody's going to make it with their works. We know that. And it says that. But we do know the basis on which they do make it. And it's like, and you say, can it be a last second thing? No, it can only be if he offers it to you, I suppose. If he offers you. You can't just be like, oh, Jesus, I changed my mind. If you heard of Christ and you show up at the white throne judgment, I doubt there's going to be much room for repentance of any sort. Because it's all just going to be regret. But then you think about a little child approaching that same throne, and you can imagine there being a different outcome. And you can say that's kind of unfair because it's almost better to die young then. Maybe it is. Some people have speculated maybe it's better never to see the sun. On some levels, I understand, as far as because of all the evil, not only that you can experience, but that you can do, which is much worse. The evil you experience it comes to an end. And for it, the Lord may, if you experience so much evil in life, the Lord may decide, he can do whatever he wants. That's what I say. It's like, in that judgment, no one is going to go in. The first resurrection is for believers only. That I know. But the second, everyone's going in, and they're going to be judged. And the judgment will be fair as far as that goes. And and also, like I said, I don't think it's necessarily going to be like this painful process. It's not going to be like going to the DMV, which is because that'd be quite a bottleneck if you all got to go to the same judge. It's going to be a long day. I think I speculated once in a joke that perhaps that the worse you are, you get a bigger number. You go to the end of the line. You're down at the end of the line with Hitler and the other dudes. That last 1,000 must be pretty bad dudes, right? The world's been filled with some pretty awful people who've taken life by the throat and strangled it. I mean, that's the murders. So much blood. The earth has taken in so much blood, and it does comfort me to have a strong faith that it is going to be dealt with. That God isn't going to, not that he has to ultimately. Do I think God's obligated to do this? No. Like if we all just live and die, it's kind of what we got coming as far as I'm concerned. And since I had good in life, did I not receive the good I received? Did I received more good than I deserve in this life already. So I'm way behind the 8 ball there. I'm in debt. I don't claim that my suffering has, could in any way be seen as some sort of payment for all the wrong I did or all the good I failed to do. Because there's that too. Like I said, it's like on some level, if I'd been the best possible me, it's like maybe I would have lived my life differently and been in a position to do more. There's always that. I mean, I can always think of ways in which I can look back on my former self and be critical and use that to align my future self to be better. And that's a good thing to do. And that's what people don't do. That's why, and that's what a lot of this means to me, is because they do not take care for what is being done. And what is the result? Well, hooks and fish hooks. Your latter end with fish hooks. You away and your posterity. Probably means your children, I'm guessing. What did it say? What did the NIV say? I've dwelt on this verse for the entire study. That's okay because it's quite... I don't feel regretting talking about anything that I've talked about. All right. You each go straight out through breaches in the wall. Wait, the last of you with fish hooks. Okay, so he said instead of posterity, meaning the last, and that makes sense. You and then the last of you or whatever. I don't know. Either one is fine. But the idea is fish. I don't know what the difference of the hooks precise. I mean, I know a fish hook is not the kind of thing you like to get snagged in your skin because it has a barbed end. Usually, and I believe probably back then, it's probably very ancient innovation on the hook is to put a barbed end on so it doesn't come out. Because once you hook them, you got them hooked. And there are other places in the Bible where God uses this analogy of like putting hooks in their jaws because that's how often animals are led. With a, maybe not with like you've ever seen a shepherd's hook, and maybe they think of something like that at first, like pulled away with a hook, like an animal, like a cow, like maybe like the kind of hook whatever a cattleman might use, perhaps. Because you can see them trying to get them around their heads and move them around. When I was in football, I remember my coaches teach me where your head goes, your body goes. And it's true. You push a guy. I remember I used to take guys' heads and I just push them straight into the ground and that's where they would go. If they didn't know to keep their head up, which a lot of people don't. They put their head down. Works in wrestling too. Just show them where the ground is. You want to go down there? Here you go. Boom, boom, boom. And same thing with this. It seems like some sort of head maneuvering type thing. That's why it's like a hook. But then he mentions fish hooks because he wants to. No. I mean the piercing kind. I mean, like, I'm going to take it in your mouth like a fish and lead you out in a brutal captivity, which is pretty well describes the kind of things that the Assyrians would get up to. They really, when they defeated people, they humiliated them. And they were not going to make any little deals like, oh, okay, we'll just punish the people and let the rich go, that kind of thing. Wink, wink, nod, nod. We're all aristocracy, right? Kings got to look after kings. Politicians got to look after politicians. Cops got to look after cops, right? Never give another cop a ticket. Oh, they will, though. I mean, if you get too cute with that, you'll get a ticket, I'm sure. They probably don't like to give it to fellow cops, especially ones who work in the same department. But everyone should abide by the law, no? Yes. Well, that's the thing. You shall go out to bleed every cow at that which is before her. I wonder what they meant by that. I was like, see, they in the NIV, we'll just take this as the end of our section. We'll pick it up at verse 4 tomorrow. That's fine. Or we can go a little longer than this. We got 5 more minutes. Excuse me. You will each go straight out through breaches in the wall, and you will be cast out toward Harmon. It's the Masoretic text with a different word division of the Hebrew. Out, you mountain of oppression. So in another... So the Septuagint actually reads, I believe, this, out, you mountain of oppression. Which is, let's see what the King James said it again. Okay. Every cow at that which is before her. I don't think that word cow is there, is it? Let's look back here. Where's the King James? Come on. Every cow at that which is, that's all supplied. That's Harmon, I believe. Yeah, Harmon. And so they're saying towards Harmon, a place name. I wonder what it means. Meaning dubious, text perhaps corrupts. Oh, so So this is a text. This is a good example. This is maybe a spot where the text was corrupted, meaning they lost track of what it meant because a letter got blurry, and then it's like now we don't know what it means. So uncertain. Yeah, it could be a place name. It could be a lot of things. I wonder if Bullinger had a speculation on that. I got my companion Bible here. Let's see. Did he have any speculation about what that means? He often had little ideas of like, oh, if you read it this way, it would be better that way. And he was always good for that sort of thing. And I think in this case, I will take him up on it. All right. Haggai, we got to go back. Micah, we got Hosea, Joel, Amos. We still got to go. Hosea, there's Hosea. And here we have good old Amos. I'm glad we do this electronically usually. I didn't know I was going to go into this note, but I just had the impulse, and we're going to do it. All right. So what does it say? Here we go. Let's see would it be funny if he has no insight? Let's see, verse 2. He says, the remnant of you, instead of posterity, not posterity. And he says, in the Assyrian monuments, we see the captives with literal hooks in their noses. Yep. That's in the Assyrians made all these monuments, showing what they would do to people. They're very proud of themselves. Ah, yes, you shall cast them into the palace. He has a big note here. Palace, Hebrew Harmon. Here it is Harmona, which forms the figure of speech paronomasia, which is like a rhyming scheme or a sounds-alike scheme, with Armon in 3:11. The clause is to be interpreted by 3:11:12, and where he says, you will then be cast forth toward Harmon, The place is not known, but it may mean you women who are at ease in your palaces will be cast forth into Harmona, that is, into exile. The text is not necessarily corrupt because we do not happen to know a place of that name. Okay, good enough point. He never liked to admit any corruption in the text, though. I think there were a couple. But he was just being, I think he's just being even-handed there, really. Because, like it says, maybe it's just a place we don't know. That's why they say perhaps corrupt. In fact, even here, didn't it say, meaning dubious, text perhaps corrupt? Again, because it's hard to say definitively. But that's the suggestion that at some point in the copying, that there was a letter that got misinterpreted and got copied, and then it became Harmon, which is the mountain of Harmon, which has no meaning. I mean, no one could come up with an actual meaning. It means a castle from its height, palace, from the same of Horam. Well, let's say this is the kind of rabbit hole you get down with strong. Horam, a Canaanite king, and so that comes from what? Of uncertain derivation. Why do they lead me down that dead end? It comes from the same root as a word that we don't know the root of. Okay, thanks. How does that even make sense? Okay. Yeah, so when we can't be complacent. We're not. We're Christians. We have our eyes open. We should. A lot of Christians don't have their eyes open. And so that's something that we can work on, telling people what's going on, because the evil that's being done in our name is going to come back to us. And a lot of people are going to suffer because of it, even though they're not directly responsible. But like I said, it's a lot of these things. When our leaders go astray, we suffer, even if we don't want them to do what they're doing. We're going to suffer the consequences in part. And the Lord can help us endure that. And that's what we can endure it because we have the Lord. And that's the only way I look at that, as far as I just say well, we'll endure it because of the Lord. I'm not like, oh, they're ruining the world. I mean, sometimes I feel like that a bit, but I do know that, whatever happens, it's going to be the Lord that I look to save me, from whatever I need to be saved from. Economic troubles. Oh, it's like, I don't know, having food and raiment. If I can have a place to sleep and a place to live, maybe I don't need a place to sleep. Everyone makes a place, but Jesus, he said he didn't have one. He never really had a place. Foxes have their dens. And that, sometimes it comes to that. That's why it's food and raiment. If we're covered, if we can live, we can get by. Yeah, like I said, in this northern climate, you better have at least a cave. All right, so you would go out at the breaches, every cow at that which is before her. I guess that means just straight ahead or whatever. Shall cast them into the palace. And Bullinger, I like his reading, sort of in the sense of, more that it was that they would be cast out into this place Haran or what? Not Haran. It's what is it? It's not Horam. That was the name of that Canaanite king. What was the word before it? Which was Harmon. Okay, toward this Harmon place, which they've traveled. And the thing is, they do go to to another palace, but not the nice palaces they were used to. This is a hard captivity they go into. Not a nice experience. All right, let me see. Let me wrap it up. So, yeah, I guess we'll start commenting on verse 4. I felt like there's not a whole lot to say, because it's like we're gonna read it and it's like, well, I did kind of talk about that. I think I'm gonna go ahead a little bit of that. Well, we didn't. This is verse by verse Bible studies, Paul. We don't just blow past verses. Yeah, you want to talk a little bit more about some of this stuff. And we get into all this section where it says, "Yet you have not returned to me." Okay, well, there we go. I exhausted whatever I had to say about the beginning. And we'll spend a little more time dwelling on the next part. And that's all right. Like I said, these are very powerful words, and we would do well to give heed to them. Remember, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. And I'll be back again tomorrow.
Behind the doors, awesome, and the posts, hast thou set up thy remembrance, for thou hast discovered thyself to another than me, and art gone up. Thou hast enlarged thy bed, and made thee a covenant with them. Thou lovest their bed when